Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me and everyone. So, as you know, we have this class on reading the very special holy text called Vishuddhimagga, the path of purification. So, before we start this, please secure your space in a good posture and most importantly, good attention and good intention, and maybe even good retention. And this is all possible if you know that you are doing this for now or me or today, but for a long time in the future, for others, for my mind, and for the teaching to manifest whenever you need guidance. So with this attitude, we first do the refuge, which is affirming our faith and friendship and commitment and joy and gratitude and having Dharma in our lives. So with that, we acknowledge the Buddha, incredible, his wisdom, his dedication, his amazing compassion and tolerance through which he achieved Buddhahood. And then how every teaching he gave became the guiding force of all those who are lost in the thicket of samsara. So the Dharma is the light. And then we have Sangha, that is the friendship and brotherhood and sisterhood we form by having Dharma together. So reflect on this and rejoice that we are all in the very cool shade of Dharma, so that we are not exposed to the extreme heat of samsara. So with this, we do the refuge and the generation of bodhicitta, and then the generation of four immeasurables. We have a folder, isn't it, somewhere? We have a folder here. Can you give to Dan? And some of you may know by heart, but well, others Hoyenda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Atere Vidya Ladama Bhavachu Ajendala Ajara Padavadu Enda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Atere Vidya Ladama Bhavachu Ajendala Ajara Padavadu Enda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Atere Vidya Ladama Bhavachu Ajendala Ajara Padavadu. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment for and those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment for and those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment for those near and far. According to the intelligence and predisposition of it, where are the yajanda dharma agrelo and come goals. So we'll recite the Heart Sutra mantra. Tadyatam gate gate para sam gate bodhi soha, while meditating on the meaning, the gone, thoroughly gone, thoroughly gone, great enlightenment, so be it. Which means that we need to leave and not stay in the past. Everything is finished, if it started at all, So we need to leave and go forward towards the path of enlightenment by shedding our baggage and karma, habits and wrong views, and collecting the merits and prerequisites for each step, merits and wisdom and discipline and all the necessary things. So we'll recite and meditate on that. Tadyadam gade bara zam gade bodhisattva. 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 Dede danga denga de bara zanga de 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 bodhisattva. Tadyadanga 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 denga de bara zanga de bodhisattva. So thank you everybody for making your time and being here. So being able to place your emphasis and to set a time where you set out to be, such as to learn the Dharma, read the scriptures, listen to it, and be with the fellow Sangha, and sit still, and learn to be still, and learn to pay attention, and then resolve your thoughts and sort out your thoughts, and drop some of the thoughts because they are not useful. Then pay attention to those that looks very promising. The teaching is designed to make you to develop this awareness. I need to develop this discipline, this perspective. And so in order to do that, we have the good opportunity to read this very sacred scripture called Vishuddhimagga, compiled together by a famous 5th century Theravadin Buddhist monk. We shouldn't really say Theravadin monk, he was a great arhat. But since people tend to say who's where from type of thing, so in the conventional Buddhist categories, he is highly revered in the southern Theravada Buddhist countries, almost more famous than Nagarjuna is. Nagarjuna is never heard of in the Theravadins. They don't know of his historicity, let alone his writings. But Dandacharya, Ashwagosha is very highly revered. His name is very famous. There is a Ashwagosha in the Vajrayana tradition too. I don't know whether it's the same or different. The word Ashwagosha means horse neighing. It is said that his birth when he was born upstairs, down in the stable, horse neighed. So it meant the horse took notice that this was a special coming to the world, that his neighing was to roar the sound of the Dharma. That he indeed did, such as through this writing. So we have this incredible opportunity to read his collection of writings, and this is Vishuddhimagga. So we have read up to chapter 4, verse number 41, and that last few paragraphs we read talked about the importance of the abode and the resort and speech and person and food and climate and posture in order to do the meditation. Now tonight we're going to start on paragraph number 42, talking about 10 kinds of skills, very special techniques how you develop in meditation. 42. However, if this does not happen while he's practicing in this way, then he should have recourse to the 10 kinds of skill in meditative absorption. Here is the method. Skill in absorption needs to be dealt with it in 10 aspects. First is making the basis clean. Making the basis clean is cleaning the internal and external basis. For when his head, hair, nails, body and are long, or when his body is soaked with the sweat, then the internal basis is unclean and unpurified. But when an old, dirty, smelly robe is worn, or when the lodging is dirty, then the external base is unclean or unpurified. When the internal and external bases are unclean, then the knowledge and the consciousness and consciousness concomitants that arise is unpurified, like the light of the lamp's flame that arises with an unpurified lamp bowl, wick and oil as it supports. Formation do not become evident to one who tries to comprehend them with unpurified knowledge, and when he devotes himself to his meditation subject, it does not come to growth, increase, or fulfillment. But when the internal external bases are clean, then the knowledge in the consciousness and consciousness concomitants that arise is clean and purified, like the light of a lamp's flame that arises with a purified lamp bowl, wick, and oil as it supports. Formation become evident to one who tries to comprehend them with purified knowledge, and as he devotes himself to his meditation subject, it comes to growth, increase, and fulfillment. So this is talking about cleanliness. The one in Vajrayana Buddhism, we talk about washing yoga. We should firstly wash first thing in the morning, not just wash for the feeling of the body, but wash it as an internal purification. Also the place itself should be very pleasing, made clean nicely, and then it delights the person to do the meditation. And the second is maintaining the balance faculties, is equalizing the 5 faculties, the 5 faculties of faith. So here it's not just talking about sense faculties, they're talking about the actual 5 faculties such as faith, diligence, and so on, faith and the rest. For if faith faculty is strong, meaning if you believe in your practice and you have no doubt about the teaching is strong, and the others are weak, then the energy faculty cannot perform its function of exerting. The mindfulness faculty, its function of establishing. The concentration faculty, its function is not distracting. And understanding faculty, its function is seeing. So these are listing those 5. So in that case, the faith faculty should be modified, either by reviewing the individual essence of the states concerned, that is the objects of attention, or by not giving them attention anyway, in which the faith faculty become too strong. And this is illustrated by the story of Elder Vakali, Pali. Then, if the energy faculty is too strong, the faith faculty cannot perform its function of resolving, nor can the rest of the faculties perform their several functions. So, in that case, the energy faculty should be modified by developing tranquility. Tranquility means calm body meditation, and so on. And this should be illustrated by the story of Elder Sona. So too with the rest, for it should be understood that when any of them is too strong, the others cannot perform their several functions. However, what is particularly recommended is balancing faith with understanding and concentration with energy. For one strong in faith and weak in understanding has confidence uncritically and groundlessly. One strong in understanding and weak in faith on the side of cunning and is hard to cure, as one sick of disease caused by medicine. With the balancing of two, a man has confidence only when there are grounds for it. Then idleness overpowers one strong in concentration and weak in energy, since concentration favors idleness. Agitation overpowers one strong in energy and weak in concentration, since energy favors agitation. But concentration coupled with energy cannot lapse into idleness, and energy coupled with concentration cannot lapse into agitation. So these two should be balanced, for absorption comes with the balancing of the two. Again, the concentration and faith should be balanced. One working on concentration needs strong faith, since it is with such faith and confidence that he reaches absorption. Then there is balancing of concentration and understanding. One working on concentration needs strong unification, since that is how he reaches absorption. And one working on insight needs strong understanding, since that is how he reaches penetration of characteristic. But with the balancing of the two, he reaches absorption as well. 49. Strong mindfulness, however, is needed in all instances, for mindfulness protects the mind from lapsing into agitation through faith, energy, and understanding, which favor agitation, and from lapsing into idleness through concentration, which favor idleness. So it is as desirable in all instances as the seasoning of a salt in all sauces, as the prime minister in all king's business. Since it is said in the commentaries, and mindfulness has been called universal by the Blessed One. For what reason? Because the mind has mindfulness as its refuge, and mindfulness is manifested in protection, and there is no exertion and restraint of mind without mindfulness. So that's the third point, that need to have balance in those five. Third is skill in sign. A skill in sign is skill in producing the as yet unproduced sign of unification of mind through the earth katrina, etc. Skill in protecting the sign when obtained by development. The last is one it is intended here. I suppose the skill in sign is being able to have some omens from which you can see your progress or lack thereof. Fourth is, how does he exert the mind on an occasion when it should be exerted? When his mind is slack and overlaxness of energy, etc., then instead of developing the three enlightened factors beginning with tranquility, he should develop those beginning with investigation of states. For this is said by the Blessed One. Bhikshus, suppose a man wanted to make a small fire burn up, and he put wet grass on it. Put wet and scatter dust on it, would that man be able to make the small fire burn up? No, Venerable Sir. So too, bhikshus, when the mind is slack, that is not time to develop tranquility enlightenment factor, concentration enlightenment factor, or equanimity enlightenment factor. Why is that? Because slack mind cannot well be roused by those states. When the mind is slack, that is the time to develop investigation of states enlightenment factor, the energy enlightenment factor, and the happiness enlightenment factor. Why is this? Because a slack mind can well be roused by those states. Bhikshu, suppose a man wanted to make a small fire burn up, but he put dry grass on it, put dry cow dung on it, put dry sticks on it, blew it with his mouth, and did not scatter dust on it. Would that man be able to make a small fire burn up? Yes, Venerable Sir. And here is the development of the investigation of states of enlightenment factor, etc., should be understood as the nutriment for each one respectively. For this is said, bhikshus, there are profitable and unprofitable states, reprehensible and blameless state, inferior and superior state, dark and bright states, the counterpart of each other. Wise attention, much practice therein, is the nutriment for the rising of the unarisen investigation of states, enlightenment factor, all leads to the growth, fulfillment, development, and perfection of the arisen investigation of states of enlightenment factor. Likewise, bhikshu, there is the element of initiative, the element of launching, and element of persistence. Wise attention, much practice therein, is the nutriment for the arising of the unarisen energy enlightenment factor, all leads to the growth, fulfillment, development, and perfection of the arisen energy enlightenment factor. Likewise, bhikshu, there are states productive of the happiness enlightenment factor. Wise attention, much practice therein, is the nutriment for the arising of the unarisen happiness enlightenment factor, all leads to the growth, fulfillment, development, and perfection of the arisen happiness enlightenment factor. 2053. Herein, the wise attention given to the profitable, etc., is attention occurring in penetration of individual essences and of the three general characteristics. Wise attention given to the element of initiative, etc., is attention occurring in the arousing of the element of initiative, and so on. Herein, initial energy is called element of initiative. The element of launching is stronger than that because it launches out from idleness. The element of persistence is still stronger than that because it goes on persisting in successive later stages. States productive of the happiness enlightenment factor is the name for happiness itself, and attention that arouses that is wise attention. There are besides 7 things that lead to the arising of the investigation of states enlightenment factor. 1. Asking questions. 2. Making the basis clean. 3. Balancing the faculties. 4. Avoidance of person without understanding. 5. Cultivation of person with understanding. 6. Reviewing the field for the exercise of profound knowledge. 7. Resoluteness upon that investigation of states. Number 55. 11 things lead to the arising of energy of enlightenment factor. 1. Reviewing the fearfulness of the states of loss, etc. 2. Seeing benefit in obtaining the mundane and supermundane distinction dependent on energy. 3. Reviewing the course of the journey to be traveled. Thus, the path taken by Buddha, Pratyeka Buddhas, and the great disciples has to be taken by me and cannot be taken by an idler. 4. Being a credit to the alms food by producing great fruit for the giver for the givers. 5. Reviewing the greatness of the great food of the givers. Reviewing the greatness of the master. Thus, my master praised the energetic, and this unsurpassable dispensation that is so helpful to us is honored in the practice, not otherwise. 6. Reviewing the greatness of the heritage. Thus, it is the great heritage called the good Dharma that is to be acquired by me and cannot be acquired by an idler. 7. Removing stiffness and torpor by attention to perception of light, change of postures, frequenting the open air, etc. 8. Avoidance of idle person. 9. Cultivation of energetic persons. 10. Reviewing the right endeavors. 11. Resoluteness upon that energy. 56. 11 things lead to the arising of the happiness enlightenment factor. The recollection of 1. Of Buddha. 2. Dharma. 3. Sangha. 4. Virtue, generosity. 5. 4. Of deities. 6. A recollection of peace. 7. avoidance of rough persons. 9, cultivation of refined persons. 10, reviewing encouraging discourses. 11, resoluteness upon that happiness. So by the arousing these things in these ways, he develops the investigation of state, enlightenment factor, and the others. This is how he exerts the mind on an occasion when it should be exerted. How does he restrain his mind on an occasion when it should be restrained? When his mind is agitated through over-energeticness, etc., then instead of developing the 3 enlightenment factors, beginning with investigation of states, he should develop those beginning with tranquility. For this is said by the Blessed One, Bhikshu, suppose a man wanted to extinguish a great mass of fire, and he put dry grass on it, and did not scatter dust on it, would that man be able to extinguish the great mass of fire? No, Venerable Sir. So too, bhikshus, when the mind is agitated, that is not the time to develop investigation of states of enlightenment factor, the energy enlightenment factor or happiness enlightenment factor. Why is that? Because an agitated mind cannot be acquitted by these states. When the mind is agitated, that is the time to develop tranquility enlightenment factor and concentration enlightenment factor and equanimity enlightenment factor. Why is this? Why is that? Because an agitated mind can well be quitted by these states. Bhikshus, suppose a man wanted to extinguish a great mass of fire, and he put wet grass on it and scattered dust on it. Would that man be able to extinguish that great mass of fire? Yes, Venerable Sir. 58. And here the development of the tranquility enlightenment factor, etc., should be understood as the nutriment for each one respectively. For this is said, bhikshus, there is bodily tranquility and mental tranquility. Wise attention much practice therein is the nutriment for the arising of the unarisen tranquility enlightenment factor, or leads to the growth, to fulfillment, development, and perfection of arisen tranquility factor, enlightenment factor. Likewise, bhikshu, there is the sign of serenity, sign of non-diversion. Wise attention, much practice therein, is the nutriment for arising of the unarisen concentration enlightenment factor, or leads to the growth, fulfillment, development, and perfection of the arisen concentration enlightenment factor. Likewise, bhikshu, there are states productive of the equanimity factor. Wise attention, much practice therein, is the nutriment for the arising of the unarisen equanimity factor, or leads to growth, fulfillment, development, and perfection of the arisen equanimity enlightenment factor. 59. Herein, the wise attention given to the 3 instances is attention occurring in arousing tranquility, etc., by observing the way in which they arose in him earlier. The sign of serenity is a term for serenity itself, and non-diversion is a term for that too, in the sense of non-distraction. 60. There are, besides, 7 things that lead to the arising of tranquility enlightenment factor. 1. Using superior food. 2. Living in a good climate. 3. Maintaining a pleasant posture. 4. Keeping to the middle. 5. Avoidance of violent persons. 6. Cultivation of person tranquil in body. 7. Resoluteness upon the tranquility. 61. 11 things that lead to arising of the concentration enlightenment factor are: 1. Making the bases clean. 2. Skill in science. 3. Balancing the faculties. 4. Restraining the mind on occasion. 5. Exerting the mind on occasion. 6. Encouraging the listless mind by means of faith and a sense of urgency. 7. Looking on with equanimity at what is occurring rightly. 8. Avoidance of unconcentrated person. 9. Cultivation of concentrated person. 10. Reviewing of the jhanas and liberation. 11. Resoluteness upon the concentration. 62. 5 things that lead to the arising of equanimity enlightenment factors are: 1. Maintenance of neutrality towards living beings. 2. Maintenance of neutrality towards formation, inanimate objects. 3. Avoidance of persons who show favoritism towards beings and formations. 4. Cultivation of persons who maintain neutrality towards beings and formations. 5. Resoluteness upon that equanimity. So, by arousing these things in these ways, he develops the tranquility enlightenment factor as well as the other. This is how he restrains the mind on an occasion when it should be restrained. Number 6. How does he encourage the mind on an occasion when it should be encouraged? When his mind is listless owing to sluggishness in the exercise of understanding or to failure to attain bliss of peace, then he should stimulate it by reviewing the 8 grounds for a sense of urgency. These are 4, namely birth, aging, sickness, death, with the suffering of the states of loss as 5th, also the suffering in the past rooted in the round birth, suffering in the future rooted in the round rebirth, and suffering in the present rooted in the search of nutriment. And he creates confidence by recollecting the special qualities of Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. This is how he encourages the mind on an occasion when it should be encouraged. 7. How does he look on at the mind with equanimity on an occasion when it should be looked on at with equanimity? When he's practicing in this way, and his mind follows the road of serenity, occurs evenly on the object, and is unidle, unagitated, and not listless, and then he is not interested to exert or restrain or encourage it. He is like charioteer, where the horses are progressing evenly. This is how he looks on at the mind with equanimity on an occasion when it should be looked on at with equanimity. 8. Avoidance of unconcentrated person is keeping far away from persons who have never trodden the way of renunciation, who are busy with many affairs, whose hearts are distracted. 9. The cultivation of concentrated person is approaching periodically persons who have trodden the way of renunciation and obtained concentration. He's talking about the influence that we have when we encounter with people who are cultivated. By being close to them, then we actually somewhat catch their habits. They say if you leave an ordinary piece of log in a sandalwood jungle, then a few months later you collect that log, you can smell all the sandalwood. So that's why I'm talking about who we are should be avoiding, or who should we need to adhere to. Number 10, resoluteness upon that is the state of being resolute upon concentration. The meaning is giving concentration importance, tending, leaning, and inclining to concentration. This is how tenfold skills in concentration should be undertaken. So that's his Ashwagosha's commentary. But the root text from the root of that text is this one. Any man who requires this sign, this tenfold skill will need to heed in order to absorption to gain, thus achieving his bolder goal. But if in spite of his efforts no result comes that might require, his work still a wise wit persists, never this task relinquishing. Since Atiro, if he gives up, thinking not to continue in the task never gains distinction. Here, no matter how small at all, a man wise in temperament notice how his mind incline energies and serenity. Always he couples each to each. Now his mind, seeing that it holds back, he prods. Now the restraining rein, tightening, seeing it pull too hard, guiding with even pace the race, well controlled. Bees get the pollen. Well-balanced efforts meet the great treat. Leaves, thread, and ships, and toil tubes too. Gain thus not otherwise the prize. Let him set aside then this lax, also this agitated state, steering here his mind at sign, as the bee and rest suggest. 67. The four similes. Here is the explanation of the meaning. When a true clever bee learns that a flower on a tree is blooming, it sets out hurriedly, overshoots the mark, turns back, and arrives when the pollen is finished. Someone must be watching how the bees are missing the pollen. It's incredible. Incredible. That's what the meditators do. They watch the bees. The bees misses the flower. Incredible. Let me read that again. When a true clever bee learns that flower on a tree is blooming, it sets out hurriedly, overshoots the mark, turns back, and arrives when the pollen is finished, and another not clever enough bee who sets out with too slow speed arrives when the pollen is finished too. But the clever bee sets out with balanced speed, arrives with ease at the cluster of flowers, takes as much as pollen as it pleases, and enjoys the honeydew. It's talking about middle way here. Talking about middle way. Even sipping your drinks, don't sip too quickly. The good simile, isn't that? That's a good simile. First simile. Again, when surgeons' pupils are being trained in the use of a scalpel on a lotus leaf in a dish of water, one who is too clever applies the scalpel hurriedly and either cuts the lotus leaf in two or pushes it under the water, and another who is not clever enough does not even dare to touch it with the scalpel for fear of cutting it in two or pushing it under. But one who's clever shows the scalpel stroke on it by means of balanced effort, and being good at his craft, he is rewarded on such occasions. So John, like an experienced worker with his trade, I think. Again, that's the third simile. Again, the king announces, anyone who can draw out a spider's thread 4 fathoms long shall receive 4,000. One man who is too clever breaks the spider's thread here and there by pulling it hurriedly. Another who is not clever enough does not dare to touch it with his hand in fear of breaking it, but a clever man pulls it out starting from the end with balanced effort, winds it to the stick, and so wins the prize. So that's the third simile. Again, too clever skipper hoists full sails in a high wind and sends his ship adrift. Another, not clever enough skipper, lowers his sails in a light wind and remains where he is. But a clever skipper hoists the full sail in a light wind, takes it half his sails in a high wind, and so arrives safely at his desired destination. Are there any sailors here? You can relate to that. Again, when the teacher says, anyone who fills the oil tube without spilling any oil will win a prize. One who is too clever fills it hurriedly out of greed for the prize, and he spills the oil. Another who is not clever enough does not dare to pour the oil at all for fear of spilling it. But one who is clever fills it with a balanced effort and wins the prize. So those are the 4 similes. Just as in these 4 similes, so too, when the sign arises, one bhikshu forces his energy, thinking, I shall soon reach absorption. Then his mind lapses into agitation because his mind's overexerted energy, and he is prevented from reaching absorption. Another who sees the defect in overexertion slacks off his energy, thinking, what is absorption to me now? Then his mind lapses into idleness because of his mind's too lax energy, and he too is prevented from reaching absorption. Yet another who frees his mind from idleness, even when it is only slightly idle, and from agitation when only slightly agitated, confronting the sign with balanced effort reaches absorption. One should be like the last named. It was with reference to this meaning that it was said above, 73, well-controlled bees get the pollen, well-balanced efforts meet the treat, leaves, thread, and ships the oil tubes too, gain thus not otherwise the prize. Let him set aside then his lacks, also his agitated states, steering here his mind at the sign, at the bee, as the bee and the rest suggest. So that two verses captured all the meaning. So the rest is his explanation. This is how Ashvaghosha does. He does the explanation first and then gives the gist, the root text. Whereas others does the opposite. First gives the root text and then explains. 74. Appearance of absorption in the cognitive state. So while he's guiding his mind in this way, confronting the sign, then knowing now absorption will succeed, there arise in him mind or adverting with the same earth kasina as its object, interrupting the occurrence of consciousness as life continuum, and evoked by the constant repeating of earth, earth, earth. After that, either 4 or 5 impulsion impel on that same object, the last one of which is an impulsion of the fine material sphere. The rest are of semisphere, but they have stronger applied thought, sustained thought, happiness, bliss, and unification mind than the normal ones. They are called preliminary work, consciousnesses, because they are the preliminary work for absorption, and they are also called access consciousnesses because of their nearness to the absorption, or because they happen in its neighborhood, just as the words village access or city access are used for a place near to a village, etc. And they are also called conformity consciousnesses, but because they conform to those that precede the preliminary work, consciousnesses, and to the absorption that follows. And that last of these is called change of lineage, because it transcends the limited sense sphere lineage and brings unto same exalted fine material lineage. 75. But omitting repetitions, then either the first one is the preliminary work, or second access, the third conformity, or fourth change of lineage, or else the first is access, second is conformity, third is change of lineage. Then either the fourth in the latter case, or the fifth in the former case is the absorption consciousness, for it is only either the fourth or fifth that fixes absorption, and that is according as there is swift or sluggish direct knowledge. Beyond that, impulsion lapses and the life continuum takes over. 76. But the Abhidhamma scholar, Elder Godatta, quoted these texts preceding profitable states are conditioned as repetition conditions for succeeding profitable states, adding, it is owing to the repetition condition that each succeeding state is strong, so there is absorption also in the 6th and 7th. That is rejected by the commentaries with the remark that it is merely that elder's opinion, adding that it is only either in the 4th or the 5th that there is absorption. Beyond that, impulsion lapses. It is said to do so because of nearness of the life continuum, and that has been stated in this way after consideration, so it cannot be rejected. For just as a man who is running towards a precipice and wants to stop cannot do so when he has his foot on the edge but falls over it, so there can be no fixing in absorption in the 6th and 7th because the nearness to the life continuum. That is why it should be understood that there is absorption only in the 4th or the 5th. 78. But that absorption is only of a single consciousness moment, for there are 7 instances in which a normal extent of the first absorption, the mundane kinds of the direct knowledge, 4 paths, fruition, next after path, life continuum jhana, is the fine material of the immaterial kinds of becoming, the base consisting of neither perception nor non-perception, or condition for cessation of perception and feeling, and the fruition of attainment in one emerging from cessation. Here, the fruition next after the path does not exceed 3 consciousness in number. The consciousness of the base consisting of neither perception nor non-perception as condition for cessation do not exceed 2 in number. There is no measure of the number of consciousness in the life continuum in the fine material and immaterial kinds of becoming. In the remaining instances, number of consciousness is only 1. So absorption is of single consciousness moment. After that, it lapses into the life continuum. Then the life continuum is interrupted by adverting for the purpose of reviewing the jhanas, next to which comes the reviewing of the jhanas. Number 79, now it talks about the jhanas, because jhanas are the actual result, the absorptions. There are 4. The first jhana is, at this point, quite secluded from sense desires, secluded from unprofitable things, he enters upon and dwells in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought with happiness and bliss born in seclusion. So he has attained the first jhana, which abandons 5 factors, possesses 5 factors, is good in 3 ways, possesses 10 characteristics, and is of earth katina. Herein, quite secluded from sense desire means having secluded himself from having become without, having gone away from sense desires. Now this word quiet should be understood to have the meaning of absoluteness. Precisely because it has the meaning of absoluteness, it shows how on the actual occasion of entering upon and dwelling in the first jhana, sense desire, as well as being non-existent, then there are the first jhanas, so contrary opposite, and it also shows that the arrival takes place only through the letting go of the sense desires. How? 81. When absoluteness is introduced, thus quiet, secluded from sense desires, what is expressed is this: sense desires are certainly incompatible with the first jhana. When they exist, it does not occur, just as when there is darkness, there is no lamplight. And it is only by letting go of them that is reached, just as the further bank is reached by letting go of the near bank. That is why absoluteness is introduced. For 82. Here it might be asked, why is this word quiet mentioned only in the first phrase and not in the second? How is this? Might he enter upon and dwell in the first jhana, even when not secluded from unprofitable things? It should not be regarded in that way. It is mentioned in the first phrase as the escape from them. For this jhana is the escape from sense desire, since it surmounts the sense desire element, and since it is incompatible with the greed for sense desire, according as it is said, the escape from sense desire is this, that is to say, renunciation. But in the second phrase, the word eva should be adduced and taken as said, as in passage bhikshus, only here is there an ascetic, here a second ascetic. For it is impossible to enter upon and dwell in jhana unsecluded, also from unprofitable things. In other words, the hindrances other than the sense desire. So this word must be read in both phrases thus: quite secluded from sense desire, quite secluded from unprofitable things. And although the word secluded as a general term includes all kinds of seclusion, that is to say, seclusion by substitution of opposites, etc., and bodily seclusion, etc., still only the 3, namely bodily exclusion, mental exclusion, and seclusion by suppression should be regarded here. 83. But these terms, sense desire, should be regarded as including all kinds. That is to say, sense desire object is given is given in the Nidesha in the passage beginning, what are the sense desire as objects? They are agreeable visible objects, and sense desires as defilements given thereto in the Vivanga, thus zeal as sense desire, kamma, greed as sense desire, zeal as a greed as a sense desire, thinking as sense desire, greed as a sense desire, thinking and greed as sense desire. That being so, the words quiet secluded from sense desire properly mean quiet secluded from sense desire as object, and express bodily seclusion, while the words secluded from the unprofitable things properly mean secluded from sense desires as defilement, or from all unprofitable things, and express mental seclusion. And in this case, giving up the pleasure in sense desire is indicated by the first, since it only expresses seclusion from sense desire as object, while acquisition of pleasure in renunciation is indicated by second, since it expresses seclusion from sense desire as defilement. 84. And with sense desires as object and sense desire as defilement expressed in this way, it should also be recognized that the abandoning of the objective basis for defilement is indicated by the first of these two phrases, and abandoning of the subjective defilements of the second. Also, the giving up of the cause of the cupidity and indicated by the first, and giving up of the cause of stupidity by the second, and also purification of one's occupation is indicated by the first, and the educating of one's inclination by the second. This, firstly, is the method here when the words from sense desires are treated as referring to sense desire as object. 85. But if they are treated as referring to sense desires as a defilement, then it is simply just kamma chanda in the various forms of zeal, chanda, raga, the greed, etc., that is intended as sense desire kamma. And although that last is also included by the word unprofitable, it is nevertheless stated separately in the Vivanga in the way beginning here in what are the sense desires. Zeal as sense desire because of its incompatibility with jhana. Or alternatively, it is mentioned in the first phrase because it is sense desire as a defilement, and in the second phrase because it is included as in the unprofitable, and because this last has various forms, therefore from sense desire is said instead of from sense desire. 86. And although there may be unprofitableness in other states as well, nevertheless, only the hindrances are mentioned subsequently in the Vivanga. Thus, herein, what states are unprofitable, last, etc., in order to assure their opposition to and incompatibility with the jhana factors. For the hindrances are the contrary opposites of the jhana factors. What is meant is that the jhana factors are incompatible with them, eliminating them, abolishing them. And then it is said, according to the Petaka concentration incompatible with last, happiness with ill will, applied with stiffness and torpor, bliss with agitation and worry, and sustained thought with uncertainty. 87. So in this case, it should be understood that the seclusion by suppression of last is indicated by the phrase quiet secluded from sense desire, and the seclusion by suppression of all five hindrances by the phrase secluded from unprofitable things. But omitting repetition, that is that of last, is indicated as by the first, and that of the remaining hindrances by the second. Similarly, the three unprofitable roots, that of greed, which has 5 chords of sense desire as its province, is indicated by the first. Then of hate and delusion, which have their respective provinces, the various grounds for annoyance, etc., by the second. Or with states consisting of the floods, etc., that of the flood sense desire, desires, of the bond of sense desires, and of the canker of sense desire clinging, of the bodily tie of covetousness, and of fetter of greed of sense desires, is indicated by the first, and that of remaining floods, bonds, cankers, clinging, ties, and fetters is indicated by the second. Again, that of craving and of what is associated with craving is indicated by the first, and that of ignorance and what is associated with ignorance indicated by the second. Furthermore, that of eight thought arising associated with greed is indicated by the first, and then that of the remaining kinds of unprofitable thought arising is indicated by the second. This, in the first place, is the explanation of the meaning of the words quiet, secluded from sense desire, secluded from the unprofitable things. 88. So far, the factors abandoned by the jhana have been shown. And now, in order to show the factors associated with it, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thoughts, is said, wherein applied thinking, vitakana, is applied thought. Vitaka, hitting upon, is what is meant. It has the characteristic of directing the mind onto an object, mounting the object on its object. Its function is to strike at and thresh, for the meditator is said in virtue of to have the object struck by applied thought, threshed by applied thought. It is manifested as the leading of the mind onto an object. Sustained thinking, vicharana, is sustained thought, vichara. Continuous sustainment is anusancharana, is what is meant. It has the characteristic of continued pressure on occupation with the object. Its function is to keep connaissance, mental states occupied with that. It is manifested as keeping consciousness anchored on that object. 89. And, though sometimes not separate, applied thought is the first compact of the mind in the sense that it is both gross and inceptive, like the striking of a bell. Sustained thought is the act of keeping the mind anchored in the sense that it is the subtle with the individual's essence of continued pressure, like the ringing of the bell. Applied thought intervenes, being the interference of the consciousness at the time of first arousing thought, like a bird spreading out its wings when about to soar into the air, like a bee diving towards a lotus when it is minded to follow up the scent of it. The behavior of sustained thought is quiet, being near non-interference of consciousness, like the birds planning with the outspread wings after soaring into the air, and like the bees buzzing above the lotus after it has dived towards it. Number 90. In the commentary to the Book of Twos of the Anguttara Nikaya, it is said, applied thought occurs as a state of directing the mind onto an object, like the movement of a large bird taking off into the air by engaging the air with both wings and forcing them downwards, for it causes absorption by being unified. Sustained thought occurs with the individual essence of continued pressure, like the bird's movement when it is activating its wings for the purpose of keeping hold on the air. For it keeps pressing the object. That fits in with the latter occurrence of as anchoring. This difference of there becomes evident in the first and second jhanas in the fivefold reckoning. 91. Furthermore, applied thought is like the hand that grips firmly, and sustained thought is like the hand that rubs. When one grips a tarnished metal dish firmly with the one hand, and rubs it with the power and oil and a woolen pad with the other hand. Likewise, when a potter has spun his wheel with a stroke on the stick and is making a dish, his supporting hand is applied thought, and his hand that moves the back and forth is a sustained thought. Likewise, when one is drawing a circle, the pin that stays fixed down on the center is applied thought, which directs onto the object, and the pin that revolves around is like the sustained thought which continuously praises. So this jhana occurs, 92, occurs with this applied thought and sustained thought, and it is called accompanied by applied and sustained thought, as a tree is called accompanied by flowers and fruits. But in the Viveka teaching is given in terms of person in the way beginning. He possessed, fully possessed, and of this applied thought, this sustained thought. The meaning should be regarded in the same way these there too. 93. Born of seclusion. Here the secludedness, viviti, is seclusion viveka. The meaning is disappearance of hindrances. Or alternatively, it is secluded, vivita, thus it is seclusion. The meaning is the collection of states associated with the jhanas is included from hindrances. Born of seclusion is born of or in kind of seclusion. 94. The happiness and bliss. If it refreshes, pinyati, thus it is happiness, piti. It has the characteristic of endearing, sampiyayana. Its function is to fresh the body and the mind, or its function is to pervade, thrill with rapture. It is manifested as elation. But it is of 5 kinds of minor happiness, momentary happiness, showering happiness, uplifting happiness, and pervading rapturous happiness. Herein, minor happiness is only able to raise the hairs on the body. Momentary happiness is like flash of lightning as different moments. Showering happiness breaks over the body again and again like waves on the seashore. Uplifting happiness can be powerful enough to levitate the body and make it spring up into the air. For this was what happened to the elder Mahatissa, the resident of Punavalika. He went to the shrine terrace on the evening of the full moon day. Seeing the moonlight, he faced the direction of the great shrine at Anuradhapura, thinking at this very hour 4 assemblies were worshipping at the great shrine. By means of objects formerly seen, there he aroused uplifting happiness with the enlightened one as object, and he rose into the air like a painted ball bounced off a plastered floor and alighted on the terrace of the great shrine. And this was what happened to the daughter of a clan in a village of Vakakalaka near Kandaga monastery when she sprang up into the air, owing to strong uplifting happiness with the enlightened one as object. As the parents were about to go to the monastery in the evening, it seems, in order to hear the Dharma, they told her, "My dear, you are expecting a child. You cannot go out at an unsuitable time. We shall hear the Dharma and gain merit for you." So they went out, and though she wanted to go too, she could not well object to what they said. She stepped out of the house onto the balcony and stood looking at the Akasa Chetya shrine in Giridanga, lit by the moon. She saw the offering of lamps at the shrine, and the 4 community as they circumambulated it to the right after making their offerings of flowers and perfume, and she heard the sounds of mass recital of community of sanghas, because then she thought how lucky they are to be able to go to the monastery, wander around such a shrine terrace and listen to such sweet preaching of Dharma. Seeing the shrine as a mound of pearls and arousing uplifting happiness, she sprang up into the air. Before her parents arrived, she came down from the air into the shrine terrace, where she paid homage and stood listening to the Dharma. When her parents arrived, they asked her, "What road did you come by?" She said, "I came through the air, not by the road." When they told her, "My dear, those whose cankers are destroyed come through the air." "But how did you come?" she replied. "As I was standing, looking at the shrine in the moonlight, and a strong sense of happiness arose in me with Enlightened One as its object. Then I knew no more whether I was standing or sitting, but only I was springing up in the air with the sign that I had grasped, and I came to rest on the shrine terrace." So uplifting happiness can be powerful enough to levitate the body, make it spring up into the air. 98. But when pervading rapturous happiness arises, whole body is completely pervaded, like a filled bladder, like a rock, a cavern invaded by a huge inundation. 99. Now this fivefold happiness, when conceived and matured, perfect and twofold tranquility, that is the bodily and mental tranquility, when tranquility is conceived and matured, it perfects the twofold bliss, that is bodily and mental bliss. When bliss is conceived and matured, it perfects the threefold concentration, that is momentary concentration, access concentration, and absorption concentration. Of these, what is intended in these contexts by happiness is pervading happiness, which is the root of absorption and comes by growth into association with absorption. 100. But as to the other word, pleasing sukhana is bliss sukha, or alternatively, it thoroughly suthu devours, consumes bodily and mental affliction, thus it is bliss. Sukha. It has gratifying as its characteristic. Its function is to intensify associate states. It is manifested as aid. And wherever the two are associated, happiness is the contentedness at getting a desirable object, and bliss is the actual experiencing of it when got. Where there is happiness, there is bliss, the pleasure, but where there is bliss, there is not necessarily happiness. The happiness is included in the formation aggregate. Bliss is included in the feeling aggregate. If a man exhausted in a desert saw or heard about a pond or edge of the wood, he would have happiness. If he went into the wood's shade and used the water, he would have bliss. And it should be understood that this is said because they are obvious on such occasions. 101. Accordingly, A. This happiness and this bliss are of this jhana. And in this jhana, so in this way, this jhana is qualified by the words with happiness and bliss, and also born of seclusion. Or alternatively, B, the words happiness and bliss, peti sukham, can be taken as the happiness and the bliss independently, like a law and the discipline, Dhamma Vinaya, and so then it can be taken as seclusion-born happiness and bliss of this jhana, or this jhana, so is this way, it is happiness and bliss, rather than jhana that are born of seclusion. For just as words born of seclusion can, as at, be taken qualifying a word jhana, so too they can taken here as qualifying the expression happiness and bliss, and then that total expression is predicated of the jhana, so it is also correct to call happiness and bliss born of seclusion a single expression. In the Vibhanka, it is stated in the way of beginning, the bliss is accompanied by this happiness. The meaning should be awarded, regarded as the same way as the same way there too. 102. The first jhana, this will be explained below. The enters upon upasambhajja, arrives at, reaches is what is really meant, or else taking it as makes enter. Upasampadayitva, then producing, is what is meant. In the Vibhanka, this is said, enters upon, the gaining, regaining, reaching, the arrival at, touching, the realizing of, the entering upon upasampada, the first jhana, the meaning of which should be regarded as the same way. 103. And dwells in means viharati. By becoming possessed of jhana of the kind described above, through dwelling in a posture favorable to that jhana, he produces a posture, a procedure, a keeping, an enduring, a lasting, a behavior, a dwelling of a person. For this is said in the Vibhanga, dwells in, poses, proceeds, keeps, endures, lasts, behaves, dwells. Hence, dwells is said. 104. Now, it was also said above, which abandons 5 factors, possess 5 factors. Herein, the abandoning of the 5 factors should be understood as the abandoning of the 5 hindrances, namely lust, ill will, stiffness, torpor, agitation and worry, and uncertainty, for no jhana arises until these have been abandoned, so they are called the factors of abandoning. For although other unfavorable things too are abandoned at the moment of jhana, still only these are specifically obstructive to jhana. 105. The mind affected through lust by greed for varied objective fields does not become concentrated on an object consisting in unity, or being overshadowed by lust, it does not enter on the way of abandoning the sense desire element. When pestered with ill will towards an object, it does not occur uninterruptedly. When overcome by stiffness and torpor, it is unwieldy, willed by. When seized by agitation and worry, it is unquiet and buzzes about. When stricken by uncertainty, it fails to mount the way to accomplish the attainment of jhana. So it is these only that they are called factors of abandoning, because they are specifically obstructive to jhana. 106. But applied thought directs the mind onto the object. Sustained thought keeps it anchored there. Happiness produced by the success of effort refreshes the mind when effort has succeeded through not being distracted by those. Then unification aided by directness onto it, by anchoring, this refreshing and this intensifying evenly and rightly centers the mind with the remaining associated states on the object consisting in unity. Consequently, possession of 5 factors should be understood as the arising of these 5, namely applied thought, sustained thought, happiness, bliss, and unification of mind. 107. For it is when these are arisen that jhana is said to be arisen, which is why they are called the 5 factors of possessions. Therefore, it should not be assumed that jhana is something other which possess them, but just as the army with the 4 factors, and music with the 5 factors, and the path with the 8 factors, eightfold path, are stated simply in terms of their factors, so these too should be understood as stated simply in terms of its factors, when it is said to have 5 factors or possess 5 factors. 108. And while these 5 factors are present also at the moment of access and are stronger in access than in normal consciousness, they are still stronger here than in access and acquire the characteristic of a fine material sphere. For applied thought arises here directing the mind on the object in an extremely lucid manner. The sustained thought does so, possessing the object very hard, and the happiness and bliss pervade the entire body. Hence it is said that there is nothing in his whole body not permeated by the happiness and bliss born of seclusion. And unification too arises in the complete contact with the object that the surface of the box lid has with the surface of its base. This is how they differ from the others. 109. Although unification of mind is not actually listed among these factors in the summary version beginning, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, nevertheless, it is mentioned later in the Vibhanga as follows. Jhana, it is applied thought. Sustained thought, happiness, bliss, unification. So, it is a factor too for the intention with which the Blessed One gave summary in the same as that which he gave the exposition that follows it. 110. It's good in three ways, possess 10 characteristics. The goodness in three ways is good is in the beginning, middle, and end. The possession of 10 characteristics should be understood as the characteristic in the beginning, middle, and the end too. Here is the text. Now 111. Of the first jhana, purification of the way is the beginning, intensification of equanimity in the middle, the satisfaction is the end. Of the first jhana, purification of the way is the beginning. How many characteristics has the beginning? The beginning has three characteristics. Mind is purified of obstruction to the jhana. Because it is purified, the mind makes way for the central state of equilibrium, which is the sign of serenity. Because it has made the mind enter into the state, and it is since the mind become purified of obstructions, and through being purified makes way for a central state of equilibrium, which is the sign of serenity, and having made way, enters into the state that the purification of the way is the beginning of the first jhana. These are the three characteristics of the beginning. Hence, it is said, the first jhana is good in the beginning, which possess the three characteristics. Of the first jhana, intensification of equanimity is the middle. How many characteristics has the middle? The middle has three characteristics. He now looks on with equanimity at the mind which is purified. He looks on the equanimity at it as having made way for serenity. He looks on with equanimity at the appearance of unity. And in that, he now looks on with equanimity at the mind that is purified, and looks on with equanimity as it having made way for serenity, and looks on with equanimity at the appearance of unity. That intensification of equanimity is the middle of the first jhana. These are the three characteristics of middle. Hence, it is said, the first jhana is good in the middle, which possess three characteristics. 113. Of the first jhana, satisfaction is the end. How many characteristics has the end? The end has four characteristics. The satisfaction, in the sense that there was non-excess of any of the states arisen therein. The satisfaction in the sense that the faculties had a single function, and satisfaction in the sense that the appropriate energy was effective, and satisfaction in the sense of repetition are the satisfaction in the end of the first jhana. These are the four characteristics of the end. Hence, it is said, the first jhana is good in the end, which possess the four characteristics. 114. Herein, the purification of the way is access together with its concomitants. Intensification, equanimity, absorption. Satisfaction is reviewing. So some comment. But it is said in the text, the mind arrived at unity enters into purification of the way, is intensified in equanimity, and is satisfied by knowledge. And therefore it is from the standpoint within the actual absorption that purification of the way, firstly, should be understood as the approach, with intensification of equanimity as the function of the equanimity consisting in specific neutrality, and satisfaction as the manifestation of clarifying knowledge's function in accomplishing the non-access of states. How? 115. Firstly, in the states of consciousness in which absorption arises, mind becomes purified from the group of defilements called hindrances that are an obstruction to jhana. Being devoid of obstruction because it has purified, it makes the way for the central state of equilibrium, which is the sign of serenity. Now, it is the absorption concentration itself occurring evenly that is called the sign of serenity. But the consciousness immediately before that reaches that state by way of change in single continuity. And it is it is said that makes a way for the central state of equilibrium, which is the sign of a serenity. And it is said that it enters into the state by approaching it through or having made way for it. That is why the first place, a purification of the way, while referring to aspect existing in the preceding consciousness, should nevertheless be understood as the approach at the moment of the first jhana's actual arising. And 16. Secondly, when he has no no more interest in purifying, since there is no need to repurify what has already been purified. Thus it is said that he looks on with equanimity at the mind that is purified. And when he has no more interest in concentrating again, and which has already made a way of a serenity by arriving at the state of serenity, it is said that he looks on with equanimity at it as having made way for serenity. And when he has no more interest in gain causing appearance of unity in what has already been appeared as unity through abandonment of its association with the defilements in making way for serenity, it is said that he looks on with equanimity at the appearance of unity. That is why intensification of equanimity should be understood as the function of equanimity that consists of specific neutrality. 117. And lastly, when equanimity was thus intensified, the states called concentration and understanding produced there occurred coupled together without either one exceeding the other. And also the five faculties, beginning with the five faculties, occurred with a single function taste, deliverance of owing to deliverance from various defilements, and also the energy appropriate to that which was favorable to their sense state of non-excess and single function was effective, and also its repetition occurs at the moment. Now all these four aspects are only produced when it's only seeing with knowledge the various dangers in defilements and advantage in cleansing the satisfiedness, purifiedness, and clarifiedness ensue accordingly. That is the reason why it was said that satisfaction should be understood as the manifestation of clarifying the knowledge's function in accomplishing the non-excess, etc. of states. 118. Herein, the satisfaction as a function of knowledge called the end, because knowledge is evident as due to onlooking equanimity, as it was said, he looks on with a complete equanimity at the mind thus exerted. Then the understanding faculty, outstanding as understanding due to equanimity. Owing to equanimity, the mind is liberated from the many sorts of defilements. Then the understanding faculty is outstanding as understanding due to liberation. Because of being liberated from these, because of being liberated, these states come to have single function. Then the understanding of the faculties is outstanding and understanding due to development in the sense of single function. 119. Now, as to the words, and so he has attained the first jhana of the earth katina. Here is the first because it starts with a numerical series. Also, it is the first because it arises first. It is called jhana because it's a lighting, upajnana, the object, and because of burning up japana, opposition. The disk of earth is called earth kachina, Patavi kachina, literally earth universal, in the sense of entirety, and the sign acquired with that as its support, and also the jhana acquired in the earth kachina sign is called too. So that jhana should be understood as of earth kachina in the sense, with reference to which it was said above. And he has attained to the first jhana of the earth katina. 120. When it has been attained in this way, the mode of its attainment must be discerned by the meditator as if he were a hair splitter or a cook. For when a very skilled archer who is working to split the hair actually split the hair on one occasion, he discerned the modes of position of his feet, the bow, and the bowstring and arrow. Thus I split the hair as I stood thus, with the bow thus, bowstring thus, the arrow thus. From then he recaptures those same modes and repeats the splitting of the hair without fail. So too the meditator must discern such modes as that of the suitable food, etc. Thus I attend this after eating this food, attending on such a person, in such a lodging, in this posture at that time. In this way, when the absorption is lost, he will be able to recapture those modes and renew the absorption, or while familiarizing himself
with it, he will be able to repeat that absorption, 121, again and again. And just as when skilled cook is serving his employer, he notices whatever he chooses to eat, and from then he brings only the sort, so obtains a reward. So too this meditator discern such mode as that of the food. At the time of attaining, he recaptures them and reobtains absorption each time it is lost. So he must discern the modes of hair splitter, or as a cook does. 122. And this has been said by the Buddha. Bhikshus, suppose a wise, clever, skillful cook sets various kinds of sauces before a king or a king's minister, such as sour, bitter, sharp, sweet, peppery, unpeppery, salty, unsalty sauces. Then the wise, clever, skillful cook learned his master's sign. Thus today the sauce pleased my master, or he held out his hand out for this one, or he took a lot this one, or he praised this one, or today the sour kind pleased my master, or he held out his hand for the sour kind, or he took a lot of the sour kind, or he praised the sour kind, or he praised the unsalty kind. Then he wise, clever, skillful cook is rewarded with clothing and wages and present. Why is that? Because that wise, clever, skillful cook learned the master's sign in this way. So too, bhikshus here a wise, clever, skillful bhikshu dwells contemplating on the body as a body. He dwells contemplating feeling as feelings, consciousness as consciousness, mental objects as mental objects, ardent, fully aware, mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. As he dwells contemplating the mental object as a mental object, his mind becomes concentrated, his defilements abandoned, he learns the sign of that. Then that wise, clever, skillful bhikshu is rewarded with happy abiding here and now. He is rewarded with mindfulness, full awareness. This, why is that? Because the wise, clever, skillful bhikshu learned his consciousness sign. 123. And when he recaptures those modes by apprehending the sign, he just succeeds in reaching absorption, but not in making it last. It lasts when it is absolutely purified from the states that obstruct concentration. 124. When a bhikshu enters upon a jhana without the first completing suppressing lust by reviewing the dangers in sense desires, etc., and with the first completely tranquilizing bodily irritability by tranquilizing the body, and without first completing removing self-stiffness and torpor by bringing the mind the elements of initiative, etc., and without first completely abolishing agitation, worry by bringing the mind to mind the sign of serenity, etc., and without the first completely purify his mind of other state that obstruct concentration, then the bhikshu soon comes out of that jhana again, and like a bee that has gone into an unpurified hive, like a king who has gone into an unclean park. But, 125, when he enters upon a jhana, firstly completely purifies his mind of states that obstruct concentration, then he remains in the attainment even for a whole day, like a bee that has gone into a completely purified hive, like a king who has gone into a perfectly clean park. Hence the ancient said, so let him dispel any sensual lust and resentment, agitation as well, and then torpor, doubt as the fifth. So there let him find joy with a heart that's glad in seclusion, like a king in a garden where all and each corner is clean. 126. So if he wants to remain long in the jhana, he must enter upon it after first purifying the mind from obstructive states. So we'll stop there. Thank you, everyone. Shana Padadezina Herenda Mahayana Jiji Vadeva Mereda Havagra Meo Bevegas Delavas Choedak Mayana Jiji Courage Manjujrinavad Azamanda Bhadra Deliva Follow it all the example Ashada de Geo de Mera Mede Hexalem Bodhi Jida Teba Veda Nayadans Vedas Bimbo Mayading Freely without generation. Thank you, everyone.